Well, hello there. You're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the political commentator, Tim Montgomery, and the journalist and broadcaster, Sonia. Welcome and great to see both of you. So as ever, let's take a look at the front pages, shall we? Starting with the Metro. I'm not angry, I'm not bitter, the headline there, as it covers Peter Sullivan's quashed conviction after nearly 4 decades in jail. The Daily Mail also reporting on that story, the headline, 38 years in jail for a murder he didn't commit. The UK's trade deal with America is on the front page of the Financial Times as China's President Xi Jinping says it could complicate efforts to rebuild UK-Chinese relations. New migrant rules boost UK hopes of a softer Brexit deal. That makes the front page of the Eye. The Telegraph leads on the fire at a house owned by Sir Keir Starmer, in which counter-terrorism police officers are investigating. The Guardian reporting on the war in Ukraine, as Volodymyr Zelensky says he will be in Turkey on Thursday, waiting for Vladimir Putin. Daily Star reports on TV star Kim Kardashian giving evidence at the trial of 10 defendants accused of robbing her at gunpoint in October 2016. The headline, I have babies, I need to live. The Express leads on the pressure mounting on NHS bosses to speed up the rollout of weight loss drugs. Well, The Times says weight loss drugs are hailed as the key to a longer life. We will come on to that story. About to say weighty matters, we're coming on to, that's just wrong. Anyway, Tim Montgomery and Sonia here, welcome to both of you. Right, so those weighty matters include Donald Trump and all of the agreements today and all of the elements he touched upon in his speech. I mean, there are so many, aren't they? First of all, this whopping defence agreement amid other business deals as well. How significant do you think it all was today in Saudi Arabia?
I think it's very significant. And Trump wants to sort of show the Middle East and indeed the world that America is open for business. There's been a rough time in America economically after we had Trump's announcement of tariffs. The markets were in turmoil, and he's looking up to make some of that lost ground, I think, by striking deals with leaders in the Middle East. So I do think it's significant. I think he's looking to sort of mark himself as different from President Joe Biden, where under the Democrats, there was, I would say, a less transactional approach to US foreign policy. There was clearly a desire to strike deals with the Middle East. But, you know, after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi journalist in the Saudi Arabian consulate in Turkey back in 2018, that led, quite rightly, I think, to a significant cooling in relations between the US and Saudi Arabia, and there doesn't really seem to be any overhang from that or indeed any other human rights abuses that we see in Saudi Arabia in terms of the way that President Trump is approaching it. He's approaching it, it seems, in a purely transactional view. In fact, he said in his speech today, too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use US policy to dispense justice for their sins. He's making very clear that is not what he's about. Yeah. And that's why we're seeing these big deals being struck.
Yes, and the front page of the Times with this beaming photo, praise lavished on the Saudi family, etc. And the top line for them, President Trump outlined a vision of commerce, not chaos, for the Middle East, based on the modern miracle of Saudi Arabia. Obviously, you know, huge changes happening in the kingdom right now. But that idea of removing chaos from this region, or how we see it, I mean, it's got attractive. It's an attractive policy, isn't it?
Actually, one of the achievements of his first term was the Abraham Accords between individual nations in the Middle East, and he did actually, I think, Joe Biden tried to build on them. You know, lots went wrong in his first term, but that actually was an achievement that the Democrats recognised. And lots of things that Saudi Arabia has done, not just that murder that Sonia just mentioned, the treatment of women over the years, that their involvement, which is very contested in sponsoring sort of extreme Islam around the world. You know, they have a very checkered record. But Donald Trump basically is a businessman. We know that. He looks so happy, doesn't he, around all this wealth in the last few days.
The opulence,
that beaming
the glitter.
smile. And, during the Cold War, when we were, the West was at war with Russia, etc., we made sort of all sorts of deals with countries that weren't particularly attractive. And the Americans used to say, yep, the regime is a son of a bitch, but they're our son of a bitch. I think we're allowed to say that. I've just said it anyway. So, and I think one of the things that also Trump is right about is the main foe of the West and of America is China. China is a totalitarian state. And the main result of the sort of Beijing coolness towards Saudi Arabia, understandable, was that Saudi Arabia was moving more into China's orbit again. And Trump is bringing them back on the West side. It's international diplomacy is often ugly. There's a smell to it that you're uncomfortable with. But if the choice is as crude, because it is, I'm oversimplifying it, but if the choice is Saudi Arabia going to be in China's orbit or is it going to be in the West orbit, I know what I want to be the case. And also, the arms deal, which is at the centre of this arrangement, that is a particular way of keeping parts of the Middle East, powerful countries, closer to us. Yeah. So it's ugly in some respects, but I think this is a good thing that Trump has done.
Yeah, I mean, criticisms in the past of how Saudis have bombed parts of Yemen, for example. So, I mean, and that might be the weapons that were sold to them, and, all of those questions. But Iran, have another path, choose another path. Barely a mention of Gaza in his speech today. I mean, it's very interesting, putting Saudi Arabia almost in the centre now of geopolitics and the role it plays in the region. And the reminder that this is a decades-long key ally of America.
A friend of mine is living there at the moment, and he says the country is changing incredibly fast. They're building restaurants, and you can see where the bar is going to be. They can't have a bar at the moment.
They're trying to make themselves into a new holiday destination, aren't they? In the same way that Dubai is for Westerners.
And those are the deals that the Trump, business did as well, aren't they? You mentioned China, though. The FT led on it yesterday. They're leading on it again for tomorrow's paper. Beijing fears over the UK-US trade accord, which Trump lauded again today during his address. Cloud London's bid to revive China ties. What do they think will stop happening because of the UK?
So this is really interesting, I think. So one of the things that we signed as part of the US trade agreement on tariffs is this idea that there was a condition involved, that Britain works to promptly meet US requirements on supply chain security and ownership of relevant production facilities. And that is basically about security and about China. So it comes back to this idea that actually, when it comes to trade deals, you can't have it all. And you can't have it all for a variety of reasons. One is that different countries and trading blocs around the world have very different regulatory standards. So if you want to align with them, that might pull you in different directions. But the other reason you can't have it all is because of geopolitics. And, we may all have our own views about President Trump. I'm no fan, but I know where I would rather that the UK was drawing closer to in terms of trading arrangements. And it probably would be, if it's a choice, the US over China. Now, the issue is that this government has sort of made a very pragmatic relationship with China, part of its sort of USP, because it is desperate for growth, it's important to delivering on its election pledges, and, there is hope that China could help us get there. But, it might be quite a sharp choice as a result of striking this trade agreement with the US, but the fact that we signed it with the US, I think, probably shows where the government is heading as well.
Well, the eye is leading on talks of a softer Brexit deal, which will raise your hackles, no doubt. But anyway, should we focus on the FT for now? Might be safer, but Tim.
Sonia and I are agreeing about too much tonight.
Yeah, so we'll get them to Brexit and then
we'll have a fight in a minute. But
take all the programme,
I remember, in the middle of COVID, when we were dependent upon PPE equipment, often imported from China, a country that many people suspected gave us COVID. I know that's a controversial point. There was talk of the Western economies, the democracies, trading more amongst themselves for essential goods, not just like arms and technologically sophisticated products, but medical supplies and things. And so I didn't know that clause was in the trade agreement. And I think that's important, actually. I just wish this is the route that Trump had gone down, rather than a tariffs policy which seemed to treat allies and adversaries the same. We should be building an alliance of democracies for trading these essential goods so that we're not dependent upon despotic regimes. And, of course, we need to revive manufacturing industry. The blue-collar workers in all of our economies who are struggling, this would be a way of helping them as well. So I'm probably building a mountain out of a molehill with this little clause, but I wasn't aware of that. And I think it's something, there's a germ of a very big idea in there.
OK, fascinating stuff. Let's go to the Metro. I'm not angry, I'm not bitter. The extraordinary story of nearly 4 decades in jail for a crime you did not commit.
Absolutely. So this is Peter Sullivan, the longest ever miscarriage of justice I think we've seen in the UK. He was jailed wrongly for a hideous and very violent rape and murder of a woman back in the 1980s. But he didn't do it. And he was in jail for 38 years. He's always maintained his innocence. He's a man who's actually got learning disabilities himself. He's always tried to contest it. And in 2008, it didn't work. But in 2021, the science around DNA technology changed. And it enabled his lawyers to show that there was not a DNA match with the person who, with the man who raped and murdered the woman. I've actually just forgot.
Diane Sindal, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
That is
Sorry,
unreadable
yes.
for us, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
And so there aren't quite as many questions for the CCRC, which is the Criminal Cases Review Commission, in this case as there were in Andrew Malkinson's case, because it was very clear in Andrew Malkinson's case there were abject failures. He was another big miscarriage of justice. But there are questions, because 2021... this technology had proved this. So why did it take until 2025 for him to be released? And there's big questions about compensation as well. Andrew Malkinson had to live in a tent because he didn't get his first compensation check for 19 months.
You have to prove your innocence to get the compensation.
You have to go to court and prove your innocence.
I thought they had changed it. Have they not changed it still?
I don't know whether that has been...
There was talk of it being changed.
We had a guest on earlier this evening who suggested that it was still the issue.
It's almost as if the state takes a long
just...
time to do things. But,
exactly.
I know.
Mentioned the learning difficulties. You do wonder whether, because he had learning difficulties, was he given a good solicitor? Was there did he lack the sort of, often, the oratorical skills, the ability to articulate his case, and then the state failed him from the beginning by not being aware of that and compensating for it? And you'd like to think that that couldn't happen today. But without going into details, we were talking beforehand about cases which are up for review at the moment, where there may well be still miscarriages of justice happening. And I'm afraid people who perhaps aren't mentally agile in the way that you would hope to be in a court case, I think it could still happen, actually, I'm afraid.
OK.
I think
Sonia, we need to... apologies, we need to take a break. Was it one sentence?
I just wanted to pay tribute to the grace with which he's handled this. He said he's not bitter or angry. He's talked about how difficult this must be for Diane Sindal, the victim's family. What an incredible man.
Yes, and no doubt people want to hear his thoughts. When we see him out and his family rebuild their lives with him as well. Lots more still to come in the next part of our programme. Weight loss jabs, the Express and the Times, both going on. There's plenty to discuss. Back in a moment.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me once again. We have the political commentator Tim Montgomery and the journalist and broadcaster Sonia. Welcome back to both of you. We're heading towards weight loss jabs, but via net zero, in fact, which, Tim, I think might be your choice.
You're indulging me, aren't you? Because you really want to talk about weight loss. Look, very briefly, climate change is real, and we probably do need to make massive changes to our energy supply. My own view is that technology, which is related to what we're just about to talk about, technology on the environmental front as well as on the health front is advancing so fast. Mm-hmm. My worry is, and I think this is also Bill Gates' worry, it's not just a right-wing lunatic like myself thinks this, is that
Tim,
we are...
You're right-wing, but I don't know if we could call you a lunatic.
I was exaggerating. I'm not a right-wing lunatic. But it's actually, as Britain's done throughout the post-war period with a lot of nuclear technology, we're good as a country at saddling ourselves with immature technology that costs a lot of money, and then our competitors get the new technology and out-compete us. And so, yes, we should tackle climate change, but wait till the technology is right, and then we can do it properly.
But the point is the clock is ticking, isn't it? And we're at, what, 1.6 degrees this year, for example?
What if the technology doesn't deliver? I think that's sort of the question. So I think where me and Tim might agree is, so I think net zero does come at a cost. I'm not one of these people who just thinks you can magic the costs away. And I do think it's important for politicians to be upfront about that and who the costs fall on. And at the moment, I'm worried that disproportionately it's the poor who might end up paying. Yeah. So I do think we need to have an honest conversation about that. But my view is we do need to spend on it because it's important.
Yeah, and this idea that net zero will not cut electricity bills, that's not just what it's for, obviously,
yes,
is it? But
exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. Be honest with people. I mean, people aren't being honest about this.
OK. Let's go on to two stories. Daily Express and The Times, both going on weight loss drugs. First of all, this one, the golden age of obesity-fighting drugs is on the way. The idea that NHS bosses have been urged to speed up the rollout, we've heard that before, of these weight loss drugs to many millions in a golden age of anti-obesity treatments, with studies showing patients shedding pounds may also live longer, which would then take us to The Times. Anyway.
Well, it's so nice to have a positive story for a change, but these are turning out potentially to be, I mean, they've got to be further trials, potentially to be wonder drugs. So it's a new study that's come out, and you've got an academic suggesting that they're not just weight loss drugs, they have been shown to have benefits on heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, cancer, mood, and mental health. The issue is...
Do they make you better looking as well? Is that not
oh, I wouldn't know, because I don't need that. But the problem is
Indeed.
I'm just joking. But they're only available to 50,000 people currently on the NHS when they could already benefit 3.4 million according to the obesity criteria. So you do just think, how are we going to... These drugs are in quite limited supply. They're quite expensive. How are we going to get our hands on more? That's a question, I think.
And the private sector, once you see headlines like this, will just get stronger and stronger, won't it, actually? Weight loss drugs hailed as a key to a longer life. And we're looking at the equivalent of penicillin, are we? Or aspirin, you know, some of these game-changer drugs that we now come to absolutely rely on.
We are living in the age of technology. When historians look back in this period, if we manage to keep the human race going, they will remember... They will remember the technological changes that are taking place, some of which we know are bad, and the impact on children of the handheld devices that they have now, but the health benefits of so much innovation now that's going to be accelerated by AI. This is extraordinary.
Yeah.
This is what... we have bad news all around us all the time, but as Sonia said, this is a good news story. Seems too good to be true, but maybe for once it is true.
Well, they're talking about halving deaths from heart attacks, which is really extraordinary, isn't it?
Definitely.
Tim, Sonia, till next time. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. To the weather now.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, the rest of the week looks warm and settled, with the risk of showers reducing, but eastern coasts will be cooler. Most places will have a fine start tomorrow, if a little chilly for some, but the southwest will see the odd shower. Some mist and low cloud will affect parts of Scotland and northeast England. That cloud moving south across northeast England through the morning. Elsewhere, it'll be mostly sunny.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
Well, our press preview continues in Sky News at 11. We'll have more on that. First day, Donald Trump, Saudi Arabia. Will events in Gaza disrupt his Middle East tour? Back in a moment.